Hello everyone, welcome to IASbaba. In the last session, we talked about the political conditions of India in the 18th century. Now, in this session, we are going to talk about the economic conditions of India in 18th century as well as the social conditions of India in 18th century. First, we will talk about the economic conditions and then we will go into talk about the social conditions. Okay. Now, the economic conditions, there are a lot of interconnections are there. Okay. So, we will understand all this interconnection first and then we will see all the points in a concise manner. Okay, so first, to understand the economy of India in 18th century, we have to go back to somewhat like with the establishment of the Mughals by the time of 1526. From 1526 to 1707, okay, with the coming of Babur, that is the first battle of Panipat, and death of Aurangzeb, that is 1707. So for nearly 2 centuries, there was political stability in India. Okay, there was political stability. Okay. First, we understand these interlinkages, then we will see the same points in the slides. Okay, so political stability for nearly 200 years. For any economy to grow, it is necessary to have that political stability. And you can look at the examples of Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, okay, then again Yemen and Myanmar. Why these countries are not going economically? Because there is a lot of political instability. There is no proper governance. But that was not the case in India from between 1526 to 1707. Of course, before that also, with the establishment of a Delhi Sultanate way back in 1206, and that also had created a new base for the economy, for the growth of economy, that was the centralization tendencies. And the centralization tendencies further increase with the establishment of the Mughal Sultanate, that is in 1526 to 1707. But at 1707, of course, Mughals did not end, but rather there is a prosperous period of the Mughals politically. But economically also, it was continuing. Now there was political stability, and now this political stability contributed for the growth of economy, that is economy of India. They say, according to one of the British economists, so the share of Indian economy in the world's GDP, okay, in the world GDP was around 25%. That is nearly 1/4 of the entire world production was happening in India. So what contributed for the growth of Indian economy to this stage? Indian economy has surpassed China to become the largest economy in the world. Why? Because of the base created by the political stability. And now, even though political stability is, it was a despotic system, isn't it? Mughal system was a despotic system, but how that political stability contributed for the growth of economy? Of course, for any economy to grow, any kind of, even in modern times also, as well as in ancient, as well as medieval times, for any economy to grow, the base will always come from the agriculture. Okay, they always come from agriculture. Agriculture is called as a primary sector. So there was agricultural growth was happening during the Mughals because of the policies of the Mughal emperors. Okay, so policies, which kind of policies that was helping the growth of agriculture was there? Their revenue system. Their revenue system was called as, particularly Akbar revenue system, that is called as Darisala system or 10-year system. Okay, and then again the irrigation facilities they provided. Okay, irrigation facilities, and of course all the encouragement, okay, given by the respective rulers. That is from the time of course Babur and Humayun did not have much time to rule over India, but rather from the time of Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and again Aurangzeb also. Okay, so the policies of the Mughal rulers contributed for the growth of agriculture. It was not just agriculture, but rather it was the surplus agriculture. Okay, the production has increased to greatest extent. There are a lot of production was happening that has increased the income of the villages, and villages had become self-reliant, and the surplus agriculture has contributed to make villages self-reliant. It means they were not dependent upon anyone for their goods and services. That is, they were producing all their necessary requirements. So agriculture was growing because of the policy of the Mughal emperors. At the same time, it led to self-reliant villages. And now these self-reliant villages, or we can say there is a growth of agriculture, had created the base for further development of arts and crafts. Okay, or we can also say agro-based industries. Arts and crafts are agro-based industries. And of these agro-based industries, example, we can talk about agriculture. We can just say cotton. Okay, now this cotton art and craft could be weaving. Okay, so this is how agro sector that was contributing or created base for the growth of agro-based industries, or we can say arts and crafts. And where was the center of production? Where was center of the arts and production? The arts and crafts were being produced. Of course, agriculture, that is in rural area. Okay, agriculture was in rural area, and the center of production of these arts and crafts were towns. Okay, center of production was towns, and there was a massive growth of towns in 15th and 16th century India because of the growth of agriculture. And these towns can be classified into 4 different types of towns. The overall town development that was happening under the Mughal state system can be classified into 4 different types of towns, and these 4 different types of towns can be classified into, we can just take this out just for understanding purposes. These 4 towns, example, administrative towns, okay, and second one we can talk about the commercial towns, okay, and again thirdly we can talk about pilgrim towns, and fourthly we can talk about the distinct product towns. Okay, it means these areas, these whatever the towns we are talking about, administrative towns, commercial towns, pilgrim towns, as well as the distinct product towns, they developed into this town region or town area because of the particular nature of that particular town. The reason is why we talk about administrative towns is that that area developed in a town because of the big administrative machinery over there. Example, Delhi. Okay, then again we can talk about Agra, Pune, and then again Jaipur, because these were the seat of power. Seat of power of Maratha, seat of power of Mughal, seat of power of Rajputs, you see. So their big administrative machinery as well as the big royal families, they demanded products. They demand which product? These arts and craft. They demand which product? These agricultural products. Now that area developed into a big marketplace. Of course, when there is a big marketplace there, obviously that area will develop into a town. Okay. Same thing will goes to the commercial towns. The example we can talk about Ahmedabad, okay, which was famous for textile arts and craft. Okay. That area developed into town because of that particular product. We can say that is textile product, like Srinagar, that was known for shawl industry. So in these areas, these commercial towns, the commercial functions were primary and administrative functions were secondary. But in these administrative towns, the administrative function was primary and the commercial activities or the production activities were secondary. It does not mean that in administrative town there was no commercial activities, but they had the secondary place. But the primary importance was given to administrative machinery. And the third type of town is pilgrim towns. Example, we can talk about Mathura, Kashi, Kanchi, then again Ajmer. And these areas were developed into towns because of the coming of pilgrims into this particular region, and they demanded different types of products because that product need to be provided to them at these pilgrim centers, and now those areas converted into marketplaces, and of course ultimately that growth of this temple towns. And the fourth one, distinct product. Like today, distinct product towns can be related with geographical indication stack. So one region or one particular village, we can say, or one particular region developed into town area because of one particular product which has the or that particular region had the skill in producing that one particular product. Like example, we can talk about Patan in Gujarat, which was known for dyeing, and in Rajasthan, Bayana, it is known for indigo cultivation. Okay, so now because of all this, the different type of town product, different types of towns had emerged in the Mughal time period, and that is where all these things will ultimately come down to the political stability, and the support of the policies led to the growth of agriculture. And it was not just agriculture, it was surplus agriculture. There was increase in production, and this increase in production led to growth of agro-based industries. That agro-based industries, we can just give the example of cotton, and cotton will contribute to the growth of weaving industry. At the same time, these arts and crafts were being produced in towns, in different types of towns, and there are 4 distinct types of towns, and there is administrative towns, commercial towns, pilgrim towns, as well as distinct product towns. And now these products, which arts and crafts they were being produced, they were highly skilled products. Okay, highly skilled products, and the skilled products had lot of demand. Okay, the skilled products had lot of demand. Okay, political stability led to the growth of economy, and these skilled products had lot of demand. Where it had demand, where these products were demanded, both internally, that is within India, and externally, that is outside India. There was a lot of demand for this particular skilled products, and now because of there are a lot of demand for Indian made goods, and that is the reason Indian economy was contributing to 25% of world's GDP. Okay, so now this external demand led to the growth of external trade. Okay, and this trade was in favor of India. How this trade was favor of India is very simple, because India was exporting more rather than importing. That means exporting of finished products. This trade was going because export of finished products. Okay, finished products. Now, just imagine when you are exporting more, what you are going to receive? You are going to receive lot of capital. Okay. Lot of capital or money was flowing into Indian economy, because there is lot of demand for the skilled products that was being produced because of the high manufacturing base of the Indian economy, which I directly come from agricultural base. So now when India was attracting all the wealth of the world, because India is exporting more, and during that point of time there was no common currency, and how this capital was flowing into India? Its capital was coming through bullion. Bullion is nothing but precious metals, that is gold and silver. Now India was receiving lot more gold and lot more silver from all around the world, particularly from Europe. Because Europe was growing as the most commercial, as well as the lot more political stability in Europe was also there, and the middle class, something called as middle class, was growing in Europe, and they demanded these products. And of course, Indians in India also there was a lot of demand, and now because there was a lot more demand outside India, the India was receiving lot more bullion, that is a precious metals, and that is the reason India was called as sink of precious metals. Sink of precious metals. Okay. Why India was called as sink of precious metals? It's very simple, because India was receiving lot more gold into India. Look at the capital accumulation that was happening in India, and that was the reason India was the largest economy. So India was contributing to 25% of the global GDP, and this trade only, this external trade, which was far more profitable, that attracted the foreigners, and particularly the British. And they came to India and they saw the political situation. We already seen the political situation, which was fragmented in nature, and now economy which was flourishing in nature, and now they thought like they could establish in India as an imperial power. They came as traders and they established their imperial power in India, that is a political occupation of India, and they turned India into a colony of British, and that is called as colonialism, that is governing India for the benefit of other country. So this is what the entire Indian economy could be understood. Okay, so don't worry, all these things looks very messy, but I am going to give all the points whatever we already discussed right here. Okay, so this is the economy of India in the 18th century. Okay, now we can start from, okay, I told you already, there was a political stability from 16th to 18th century India, and that political stability had created base for the growth of what? Growth of surplus agriculture. Okay, surplus agriculture. And I already mentioned that one of the British economists, which is a British economist, that is Angus Maddison. So according to his estimates, that is Mughal era. So India's share of GDP in the world from 1600, it was 22%, and by the 1700 it was nearly 25%, and actual figure is 24.4%. Why these figures are very important to write in answer is that one, you can't just the Indian economy was flourishing and prosper. There is a vague statement to make while writing answers, but if you just prove that argument with some kind of an example, and that would make your answer more legible, as well as your answer, we can say some kind of value addition has been happened to that answer. So you're going to face that your extra probably 0.5 or 0.75 marks or something like that. So that will boost your marks too. So always reinforce your argument with some kind of facts. Okay. Now that is said that political stability that created a base for flourishing economy of India. And lastly, we can talk about that is surpassing China to become the world's largest, because nearly we can say 25% of the world's products were being produced in India, and obviously India was the largest economy. And we already seen in understanding that one why Indian economy was growing. Indian economy was growing because of surplus agriculture, and the surplus agriculture had made self-reliant villages. Villages were not dependent upon anyone. All the goods and services required by the villages, they were produced in villages itself. There is surplus agriculture. Villages also had services class also, which are called as balutedars as well as alutedars. And now this self-reliant villages and surplus agriculture were growing because of the welfare policy of the Mughals, and their welfare policies could be seen in their revenue system as well as the encouragement given by the subsequent rulers. At the same time, the irrigation facilities they provided, that is the welfare policy like Dasala system. Dasala system is a 10-year system that was established during the time period of Akbar. So it was some kind of a new mathematical model was devised to calculate the revenue, and it was a lot more based on scientific averages of the previous prices, previous cultivation area, as well as previous crops that were produced for the last 10 years. Okay, they did not impose this revenue system out of whims and fancies, but rather they devised this revenue system on the base of mathematical models, and that led to the growth of agriculture. Okay, so a lot of support was being given from the state angle. Now this growth of agriculture has created base for what? Created base for growth of manufacturing as well as arts and craft. Like I told you, that is the agriculture, cotton agriculture will give base to growth of handicraft. That which handicraft? That is weaving handicrafts too. And this manufacturing of arts and crafts used to happen in towns, and that development led to the growth of 4 different types of towns. And which are these 4 different types of towns? I already told you that administrative towns, then again manufacturing and commercial towns, pilgrimage towns, and lastly distinct product. Like I already told you, administrative towns, that is Delhi, okay, Agra, and then again you can also add Lahore, and then again Pune, okay, and then Jaipur too. Okay, so then again manufacturing and commercial, Ahmedabad, and then again Srinagar, okay, and you can also add Dhaka. Dhaka presently, that is Dhaka was famous for muslin cloth and silk. Bengal was famous for silk production. That is silk commercial production was the primary activity. But here, because of the huge administrative machinery which was there had a lot of demand from the royal families, soldiers and nobles families, that created the base for growth of administrative towns, but the commercial functions were secondary. Then again pilgrimage towns, I already told you, that is Kashi or Varanasi we can say, and then again Mathura, okay, and then again Ajmer, Kanchi, okay. So these were the places which were growing due to the religious aspect of this particular places, and again distinct product. Like I told you, distinct product towns were, that is Patan in Gujarat, which was known for dyeing industry, dyeing skill for that matter. At the same time, we can also talk about Bayana, okay, and that was known for indigo. So this is various types of town. It was a town culture. It was a town life. That is a Indian economy in 18th century. It can be greatly called as town life. Of course, the largest section was always agriculture, even today also agriculture, but the growth of that agriculture, that growth out of agriculture led to the growth of these towns, and this town culture was distinguishable compared to the early medieval times too. Okay, so there was different types of towns were there, and these towns were a center of production, and this production we can talk about, there is a growth of lot of commercial activities, and these commercial products were highly skilled, and there were demand for these products elsewhere in the world. Okay, so that led to growth of well-established domestic as well as foreign trade, and this led to growth of what? This led to growth of more exports than imports of Indian products, and then when you are exporting more, that will lead to favorable balance of trade. It means you are getting more money, there is more money or capital was flowing into India. So when you are exporting more, obviously you are getting more and more income. Okay, that is today in terms we can call it as forex exchange, and at the same time this money, that capital was coming through India through bullion, that is the precious metals, and that is the reason India was called as the sink of precious metals too. Okay, so this wealth was attracted to, that is attracted to these foreign traders, and they came to India as traders, but they saw the political opportunity in India, and ultimately they conquered India and made India as the colony of Britishers. And to describe the overall Indian economy, the then dictator of Russia, the Peter the Great, was an enlightened despot. He said he described the Indian economy in his famous words. His famous words are, bear in mind that commerce of India is the commerce of the world. He who exclusively commands it is the dictator of Europe, and who ultimately commanded Indian economy, it is the Britishers. And who was the dictator of Europe until the end of the Second World War? It was the Britishers. Okay, so all this connection you have to make. Okay, so ultimately this commercial attraction that led the Europeans to come to India, and they found a lot of opportunities in the political arena, and we already discussed about the political structure of India. Now economy was attracting, at the same time political structure was also far more attracting. Okay, so now because political structure was attracting, because there is no unity in India, and economy was attracting because a lot of prosperity is there, and now they utilize it to their advantage. Okay, so this is about the economic structure of India in the 18th century. Now what is the 18th century social context? The society of India had not changed since the ancient times, from the time of the later Vedic times, and we can say Mauryans, then again Gupta's time, almost the same kind of society was there. Now we have to see the differences, how these political, economic and social conditions led to the coming of foreigners, as well as how they utilize these conditions to for their advantage. First we need to understand what was the Indian society, what was the nature of Indian society. and at the same time what was the nature of Western society, that is European society. And of course Indian society was pretty much backward looking. Okay. It was very much backward looking because a lot of social evils were there, like sati system, okay, parda system, and again child marriages, and at the same time upper caste dominated, okay, upper caste dominated education system, okay, upper caste dominated education, because this education system was also backward because it was, this education system was mainly based on religious themes. Okay, now we will compare this with the Western society, and now this Western society and Indian society was directly in conflict with each other in terms of, we can say, ideologies, in terms of the area of development and everything. Now this Western society, of course they also had class differences, okay, all these things were there, but to the lesser extent than the Indian society. We can talk about that is slightly forward looking, okay, forward looking, and at the same time they are already a reformed society, because Western societies has already seen socio-religious reforms way back in 13th, 14th and 15th centuries only, but Indian socio-religious reform movement started to happen from the 19th century. But we are talking about 18th century. There was a forward-looking society, it was a reformed society, and the education system was not religious-based education system in Western society, but rather it was based on learning of geography, learning of diplomacy, learning of, we can say, science and technology. Of course, Indian contribution to science and technology is also there from the ancient times. But was that science and technology, was that the development of science and technology, was the social phenomena? Was that science and technological developments which was happening in India was at the social level, was at the individual level? There were individual contributions were there, but did they become part of the education system of India? No. That is, we can obviously say that one, because it was not part of the education system. The education system of India was mainly dominated by religious theme, learning of Vedas as well as philosophy. But the individual contribution to science and technology was there, but they never part of the education curriculum. But that was the difference in Western society. And now, when Western society came into India, touch with Indian society, especially from the time of 16th, coming of the Europeans, by the time of 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, they thought their society is superior compared to Indian society, and they thought they could impose their dominance, okay, impose their dominance on Indians. And of course that is buttressed by the fact that there was a political fragmentation in India. There was a regional states instead of the one unified state, because unified state, which is Mughals, there is a disintegration of Mughals had happened. At the same time, the successor states of the rebellion states were growing, and these Britishers utilized the conflicts among this politically fragmented state, and they felt they are superior, they are born to rule over India, and they utilized this fact ultimately to establish their colonial rule over India, and that is continued until 1947. Okay, so now 18th century Indian political system, economic system, as well as society system, which is far more attracting to these foreigners. Economic system was attracting, we already seen, because they wanted to part of Indian economy, and political system was attracting because they understood there was no unity in the Indian political system, and social system was attracting because they thought Indian society was backward looking, and they looked down upon the Indian society, and they thought to impose the Western civilization over Indian society. Okay, so all these conditions were far more attracting to foreigners. Okay, so just to summarize all these facts, that is Indian society was filled with casteism, untouchability, and religious is all pervaded. We already talked about that one. Then again sati system, then again we talk about parda system, then again child marriages, and immobile society. What am I immobile society? That is, there was no social mobility in this society. It means the class division which was there is upper caste and lower caste, that was consolidated. The lower caste did not have much opportunities to improve their social status, to improve in the social ladder, and that is called as immobile society. And education system was also different. We already talked about that one, that Indian education system was based on Vedas and philosophy, and Western education system was based on science and technology and geography and diplomacy. So they used all this against Indians. So of course, once the Western education system started to come to India, and these education system was also became part of Indian curriculum, and education was upper class dominated, and the lower caste did not have much education opportunities, And one question we can discuss about that one, like the way we have discussed, the political, economic and social conditions of 18th century India attracted foreigners. Discuss. You just have to write about how the political, economic and social system was there. You just have to divide that one. Okay, you can just say that is the 18th century. Okay. 18th century political, okay, and economic and social system. You can just divide that one. How was the political system? Okay. And how was the economic system of India? And how was the social system? Or we can say the political system, we know that is disintegration of Mughals. Okay. Disintegration. And in place of mighty Mughals, there were later Mughals. And then again, it was an administrative breakdown that was happening. And lastly, we can talk about that is semi-independent and independent states. Semi-independent and independent states that can be called as successor states and rebellion states. So politically, it was a fragmented polity. There was no unified polity. And there was a lot of conflict among the semi-independent states like Awadh, we can say Bengal, then again Hyderabad, Marathas, Punjab. And economically, of course, India was prosperous, that is contributing to 25% of world's GDP. Okay, you can just quote the name of the economists that I just mentioned. And at the same time, India was called as sink of precious metals. And you can use the quote of Peter the Great. Okay, that is bear in mind that commerce of India is the commerce of the world, and he who can exclusively command it is the dictator of Europe. And who ultimately who could able to command the Indian economy? It was the Britishers. And society, of course, you can just brought out the fact of the backward looking nature of Indian society and the forward looking nature of the Western society. Okay, Indian society and Western society. And ultimately, you can just conclude that one. So all these circumstances that is ultimately played into the hands of foreigners who came to India, and particularly the British, and through Battle of Plassey and Bazar, ultimately they established their colonial dominance. The traders became imperialists, and the imperialists became ultimately the colonialists. Okay, so this is about this particular session. We discuss about the 18th century economic system as well as social system. Again, while reading topics, put your own simple questions. Okay, you don't have to keep solving some kind of any kind of complex questions. Of course, you keep solving this kind of complex questions in the test series, but what you have to do is that one, while reading itself only, read in a question and answer format too. Well, take the topic, start reading and put your own question in the mind, what kind of questions might come, and keep on analyzing that one, keep on improvising that particular answer format. Okay, so and add this kind of value additions to this particular answer through this kind of keywords as well as particular facts. Okay, you can reinforce your argument with little bit facts related to history. Okay, so this is about this session. See you in the next session. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, keep watching.